Here I've opened the table sample file, and we'll be making a tablecloth that will drape over this object. In 3ds Max 9, we have an efficient system for simulating cloth. It uses a combination of the garment maker and cloth modifiers. Now, it's been possible to simulate cloth for a while in Max using Reactor, which simulates the internal physics of cloth. But you'll find that this new system is more efficient and gives you quicker results. So let's get started. Go to the top viewport and create a rectangle representing the tablecloth. Make it larger than the table because we want it to drape over the edges. Go to the Modify panel and convert the rectangle into an editable spline. Go to the vertex level and select all 4 vertices by pressing Ctrl-A. Then click Break over here on the geometry rollout. That breaks the vertices so that each segment is separate now. Go to the spline level and you'll see this. This is a separate sub-spline now. This is necessary prior to the application of the garment maker modifier, which is what we're going to do next. It will give us crisp corners when we convert this spline into a mesh. Go to the top level and assign the garment maker modifier. This will only appear in the list if you have a spline selected. The purpose of this modifier is to create a mesh structure that can be turned into cloth. And it was designed to create clothing for 3-dimensional characters. But we can use it in a variety of architectural situations to simulate tablecloths, drapery, and even tensile membranes. I'll increase the density by clicking on the up arrow twice. Be careful with this, because you might crash Max if you increase the density too much. We're adding a lot of triangles with every click. The more triangles you have, the more accurate the simulation will be, the more natural looking the cloth will be, and the longer it will take. I have a flat panel here, so I'll choose that radio button. And now is a good opportunity to rename the object, call it tablecloth, and give it a different color. I'll make it white. Go into perspective and you'll see that the tablecloth is on the ground. Move it up slightly above the table so that it's hovering above the table some arbitrary distance. Then assign the cloth modifier. Go to Object Properties by clicking this first button here in the Object Rollout. That will open this massive dialog box, which allows you to control the cloth and collision objects in your simulation. Select the tablecloth object in the list, and every object that you bring into your simulation has one of 3 different choices. It can be inactive, it can be a piece of cloth, or it can be a collision object. The tablecloth is a piece of cloth. And I'll use a preset to help me fill in all of these parameters. Let's make a cotton tablecloth, and that entered all the numbers in here. And then we'll add an object to the simulation. Add the table. The table is a collision object. Click OK. Notice that the cloth modifier now appears in italic text in the stack. This means that the modifier is instanced. You'll find the same modifier on the table now because it's part of the simulation. Make sure that gravity is on because we need to simulate gravity in order to drop the tablecloth onto the table. Click on Simulate Local and the simulation will start. The cloth is beginning to drape and fold over the edge as gravity takes hold on it. The simulation might go a little quicker if we used a less complex object as our collision object. We just selected the table, which actually has quite a number of vertices in the legs and understructure that have to be calculated. We might save time by creating a simple box primitive here and using it as our collision object instead. But it's not taking that long. I'd say it's less than a minute. So I'll turn off Simulate Local when the tablecloth looks acceptable. Now the form looks pretty good, but I'd say that the shading leaves something to be desired. It has some weird blotches in here that come from the irregular topology. In Edged Faces mode, you can see where this is coming from. A solution to this is to subdivide the object. I'll use the HSDS modifier. This stands for Hierarchical Subdivision Surface, and it does something similar to Mesh Smooth and Turbo Smooth, but this modifier gives you finer control than those other alternatives. Here, I think I'll use Adaptive Subdivision, which is located in the Advanced Options rollout. I'll set the parameter to high and click OK. That adds additional topology where we need it most, namely in the areas that are the most curved. That should take care of the smoothing for us. I'll toggle out of Edged Faces mode, and we can see before and after. I'd say that's an improvement. Now, one other thing about cloth, and that is the texture coordinates will appear correct as long as you don't optimize the object. To see what I mean, I'll open the material editor and click on a blank slot. I'll assign this material to the selection and then add a diffuse map. Here I'll add the checker map and show it in the viewport. I'll increase the tiling, let's say to 30 in U and in V, and we'll get a checkerboard pattern. And you can see that it is correctly tiling in here into the folds. However, you might be tempted to use Optimize. If you look at the statistics, we have a tablecloth that has 9,500 polys in it, and most of the polys are on the flat surface, as you can see here. If we optimize that, it will greatly simplify the topology, reduce the poly count, but unfortunately it will mess up the texture coordinates. So this is not recommended. Instead, the overall form is governed by the density that you set in Garment Maker and the amount of subdivision that you set in the HSDS modifier.